Julia heard something she wasn't supposed to hear. It wasn't said loudly, not meant to be hidden, just not meant for her. She wasn't in the room. At least, he thought she wasn't. Julia and Mark had been together for 3 years. Their relationship didn't draw attention to itself. It didn't rely on strong emotions or constant reassurances. It functioned quietly, through routines and shared understanding. Mark was easy to be around. He adapted quickly in different environments, spoke comfortably with people, and rarely created tension. Julia valued that. It made everything feel stable. Julia, on the other hand, paid attention to details. Not in an anxious way, but in a precise one. She noticed tone, timing, small inconsistencies. She didn't always react to them, but she registered them. For a long time, that balance worked. Mark moved easily through situations. Julia anchored them in something more grounded. Nothing seemed out of place. They were at a small gathering. Not a party, just a few people at someone's apartment. Mark knew most of them. Julia knew some. The space was open, voices overlapping, music low enough to be ignored. Julia stepped away at some point, not deliberately, just following a quiet moment. She moved toward the hallway to get her coat from another room, passing a half-open door where the light was dimmer and the conversation more contained. That's when she heard it. Mark's voice, calm, unchanged. She overthinks things sometimes. The sentence didn't stand out in tone. It blended into the conversation easily, like something already understood. One of his friends asked something in response, a short, casual question. Mark answered without pause. "Yeah, I mean, it's just how she is. You get used to it." Julia didn't move. She stayed just outside the doorway, not hidden, but not visible either. Close enough to hear the rhythm of the conversation, the way his voice stayed steady, unguarded. Mark continued, slightly adjusting his tone as if clarifying something simple. "She notices everything. Sometimes it's a lot." There was a brief pause, then a small laugh. Not sharp, not dismissive, just enough to smooth the sentence into something lighter. From Mark's side, nothing significant had happened. He wasn't criticizing. He wasn't explaining anything deeply. He was simplifying, reducing complexity into something easy to pass along. From Julia's side, the words didn't feel like a comment. They felt like a structure. Something already decided, already repeated enough to sound natural. She noticed something specific, the absence of hesitation. No searching for the right phrasing, no adjustment mid-sentence. It wasn't something he had just thought of, it was something he had already accepted. She could have walked in at that moment, stepped into the room, shifted the direction of the conversation, made her presence visible. She didn't. Julia stepped back slightly, careful not to make a sound, and turned away. She didn't wait for the conversation to end. She didn't need to hear more. The shape of it was already complete. When she returned to the main room, nothing in her expression had changed. She sat down near the table, responded when someone spoke to her, and picked up a glass she hadn't finished earlier. Mark glanced at her briefly, smiled, and continued talking. From his perspective, nothing had shifted. The evening remained intact. On the way home, Mark spoke casually. He mentioned something about the gathering, commented on one of his friends, and asked Julia if she had enjoyed it. Julia answered simply, "Yeah, it was fine." Her tone didn't shift, not noticeably. Mark didn't ask anything else because there was nothing to question. The evening had no visible disruption. At home, the routine continued. Shoes by the door, lights turned on, the quiet sound of the kitchen. Mark poured himself water and left the glass near the sink instead of putting it away. A small habit Julia had noticed before, now registering more precisely. They moved through the same space, the same actions, but Julia's attention had narrowed, not toward him directly, but toward patterns. Over the next few days, she noticed how he responded when she spoke. When she explained something in detail, he listened, but not fully. His attention would shift slightly, just enough to signal completion before she finished. When she pointed something out, he acknowledged it, but didn't engage with it. Nothing contradicted what she had heard. It confirmed it. From Mark's side, nothing had changed. He behaved as he always had. There was no moment for him to recognize, no shift to adjust to. A few days later, they sat together in the evening. The room was quiet, the kind of quiet that didn't require conversation, but allowed it. Julia was speaking about something small, a detail from her day. Mark listened, then responded lightly, without interruption. "You think about things too much sometimes." The sentence landed exactly as expected. Same tone, same structure. Julia looked at him, not searching for anything beyond what was already there. Then she nodded, not in agreement, not in disagreement, just acknowledgement. The conversation moved on without resistance. Later that night, Julia remained in the living room after Mark had gone to bed. The space was still, the light unchanged. She thought about the hallway, the sentence, the repetition of it. They aligned without needing to be connected. And in that alignment, something became clear, not new, just defined. She didn't feel the need to bring it up, didn't feel the need to correct it or explain herself differently, because nothing had been misunderstood. The version of her that existed in his words had been consistent, not constructed in that moment, just revealed. Julia sat there a little longer, not analyzing, not questioning, just recognizing the shape of something that no longer required interpretation. And without needing to decide anything, she understood that the distance she felt wasn't sudden. It had already been there. It had just taken a sentence, spoken casually in another room, to make it visible. If this story felt familiar, there are more like it here.